What's up everybody, Matt Moran here for another car review. This is of course the 2018 Volkswagen GTI. Huge thanks to Volkswagen for providing us with this really sweet GTI to review for you guys today.
Also, huge thanks to the Automotive Video Association for arranging this car and 8 others for the first ever AVA Spring event. The event brought 6 of the best car reviewers in video and myself together to film several iconic cars and some of the top luxury SUVs.
So about the 2018 GTI, well, they did some nice refresh changes here for 2018 that I think really helped to make it a little more modern than it was whenever it was revealed in 2015. And first off, I really like this dark iron paint that you have here. It's got a bluish color to it and this gray shade, and it looks really good. I also love these new headlamps. These are on the SE and Autobahn trims. This one is an Autobahn that we have here. But I really love how the red accent from the grille continues on into the headlamps there, and very cool LED treatments you have in the headlamps as well here that really help to make it look modern. You also have a slightly more aggressive front bumper there as well that looks very good. Coming down to the sides here, you have some new wheel designs that are very typical of GTIs and really I think fit the look of this car very well. You have a nice little GTI badge here on the fender like you usually do. Going out back there, it's again just very small. This is a very compact car in the way that it's packaged, and it looks really cool with the short stubby rear end of this vehicle. It looks really cool. You have some restyled tail lamps there as well that look a little bit more advanced than they did in the past. And you also have the dual exhausts there that look good there in the back. And overall, it's just, I love how small this thing is. It just sits really low, has a really cool stance to it, even from factory here. And overall, it just really looks like it's ready to just carve up a back road.
Right, for the interior of the 2018 GTI, well, it's been nicely updated a little bit here for 2018, but still not too much different than the 2015s. But anyway, first things first, sitting down in these seats, still the same great seats you've gotten in all the Mark 7 GTIs for this generation, and have really great bolstering. It really comes out to a nice point here, and so that's both true for the torso support and for the thigh support, and so they really hug you in place well. And I also love the low seating position you can get here in the GTIs. It just really feels sporty. Next to the steering wheel here in the GTI, which is again unchanged, but that's okay because it is great. Really nice thin wheel. This has a nice 9/3 grip, nice little 10-2 notches, and I just love the way that it feels. It has a flat bottom. I like the design here around the airbag cover. You have a couple of buttons here, a couple of them are even metal, which is nice to see. Again, that's the same as all Mark 7s, and they all do the same basic stuff. You have plastic paddle shifters on the back. It would be nice if they were metal, but not a huge deal there. We are talking about a pretty affordable vehicle. And so overall, really great steering wheel. Next, the gauges here in the GTI, which are still analog units, although some of those over in Europe can get digital gauges in the GTI. We cannot. That's only on the Golf R. So for the GTI, you're still stuck even in the top Autobahn trim here with the analog gauges, but they're still very good gauges. I don't mind them at all. Just your traditional dials here like you've seen, very familiar with other GTIs in the past. You have a nice little color display there in the middle, which is pretty small, but does do all the basic stuff. You don't need to have a huge screen there for that stuff. All the audio stuff, trip information, all the basic stuff, can be found in there. And so overall, still just nice, simple, but good gauges. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, this is where you'll notice the largest change, which is this infotainment system. So it's still the Volkswagen App Connect screen, but it's 8 inches now here in the Autobahn trim. I think even though if you go for like the lower trims, it's still, I think the smallest it gets is like a 7-inch screen. It used to be the smallest one was a 6. So really, they've all been nicely improved, and this screen is especially nice. You do have a couple capacitive touch buttons, but they're large enough that they're pretty easy to hit. You still do thankfully have physical volume and tune knobs, which is really great to see. Yeah, it's a really good system, nice and glossy. It does Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, which is also very nice. It has really great album art, graphics, and everything looks very polished and high tech as far as the menus and things go. You can also, that's where you're able to display your driving modes. You can scroll through there, which is always cool to see. And so overall, a really great infotainment system, and it's paired up with the Fender audio here in the Autobahn trim as well, which gives you a little bit more higher wattage, I think, than you get in the regular GTI systems. And then coming down, you have your automatic climate control here, which I think is exclusive to the Autobahn trim. And so it's nice to have that. Otherwise, you just have the manual climate controls in the lower trim levels, which works fine as well. But this is nice to have the auto thing. You have the little displays there, and so overall, pretty good set of climate controls. You know, just 3 knobs and pretty easy to use. As far as storage space in the GTI, it's pretty good. So first in the doors here, you have a large map pocket with a bottle holder cut out. So I mean, lots of space in the doors here, which is really good for a small car like this. Coming over to the center here, you have this little area that lifts up, and then you'll see a nice deep cubby there, and you'll also find a USB jack and an auxiliary jack in there. So really great to have all that room. And you also, coming back behind the shifter here, you'll see a little power outlet, which is nice to see. And then you have 2 cup holders, which are a little bit on the small side, but still should be totally usable, and they're nicely out of the way. And then you have the center armrest, which is a nice and softly padded with this vinyl type feeling material. I don't think it's leather, but it is nice and squishy. It feels good to rest your elbow on. And you open that up, and then you have a very small amount of space in there. I mean, it goes a decent way down there with a decent depth. You also see, of course, another power outlet in there. So you could probably fit most size sunglasses in there, you know, wallet, keys, but that's about the limit. For a small car, though, it's pretty good. The last little bit of storage here is, of course, a sunglasses holder up in the roof. Backseat space in the GTI is the same as any other Mark 7, which means it's cozy but not cramped. I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself. I have about 2 to 3 inches to spare there, and plenty of headroom as well. So, you know, thankfully you do sit nice and low in those rear seats, so you feel just as much involved with the driving experience as those up front here. And you'll also see little pockets in the doors there, and air vents as well for the rear occupants, which is good to see. There's also a fold down center armrest with 2 cup holders, and it's nicely softly padded there as well. And so overall, you know, like I said, not super roomy, but for the small size that the Golf is, I think it's a pretty good amount of space. Trunk space in the GTI is pretty good, again, for the size of vehicle we're dealing with here. So, you know, of course, you can fold down those rear seats if you need more space, but even with the rear seats up, you know, it still is a plenty good amount of space. Yeah, I have my backpack there to kind of give you an idea of the type of space we're dealing with. You could, you know, stack a couple of suitcases back there for sure. Of course, the nice square hatchback versatility really helps, you know, so you can just stack things vertically whenever you run out of space laterally there. And so overall, you know, a pretty good amount of space. Under the floor there, there's really not much more space. You just have your spare tire there, and that's about it. But overall, you know, again, for the type of vehicle this is, I think it's pretty roomy. All right, so starting to go for a drive. The GTI still has a switchblade key, but I think this one's a little bit newer than what you got on some of the older GTIs. I really like it has GTI actually written there, and it's metal here. Really nice, hefty key, has a great weight to it. Of course, it's keyless entry and push button start here for the Autobahn edition. So you leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off in the 2018 Volkswagen GTI. So first thing you notice, I think, is just how low you sit in this. Again, it's so low, and it feels really cool. I really love it. It's a lot lower than even some of the other hot hatches, so I really like that about it. It instantly makes you feel like it's a driver's vehicle. Other things to note, though, visibility is very good here in the GTI, like it always has been. Pretty large windshield. You know, the dashboard does come up a little high if you have your seat down a little lower, but still a very good view forward. You also have pretty thin A-pillars with even a little window there, so really great visibility there. View out of the sides is pretty good with large side windows, and view out of the back is also pretty good with a nice short middle headrest there, so it doesn't get in your way too much, and so very easy to see. Other things to note here, we're in normal mode right now for the drive mode, and even in normal mode, you know, the throttle is pretty responsive, but you know, this automatic is the DSG 6-speed, really likes to rely on the lower RPMs, especially to maximize efficiency, but it, you know, it does like to use that turbo to give you acceleration, and you know, I'm pushing it almost halfway before it finally does give me a downshift. But again, that's because we're in normal mode and it's still trying to be pretty efficient. You might be able to hear the road noise a little more pronounced. It always has been, I think, in the GTIs, even in the older Mark 7s and older GTIs especially. And so on rougher roads like this that aren't perfectly paved, you do notice a little bit more road noise. We'll see how that is whenever we get out onto a little bit of a higher speed road. But I put it into sport mode here, and let's turn down onto this straight road and see how it does. Here we go. Getting some wheel spinning, like held red line there for a second. Man. Up and goes really well, so I forgot just how much fun it was to go full throttle in a GTI. These things really like to just take off. So it's got the 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine still. Does 220 horsepower now, 10 more than the non-refresh Mark 7, and then 258 pound-feet of torque. So 0 to 60 with the DSG here is 6 seconds. I think it's like 6.2, 6.3 for the manual. So not much slower for the manual. But I think they must be piping in more engine note than I remember in previous, in the other Mark 7s in the past, because it's really, listen, Listen to that. That's really good sound. I like it a lot. I don't care if it's piped in. I don't care if it's natural or, you know, some type of tube or what it is. It just sounds great. Listen, I'm really impressed. They really did a good job giving it a little more sound here. And I think you also get a little more out of the exhaust too, because I know when people were driving by, other people driving this vehicle earlier, I could hear a lot more burps on the upshifts and stuff. Then I think it's a lot more than used to get with, you know, previous GTIs. So that's a really nice improvement too. I'm in manual mode now. Let's see how the manual shifts are. They're pretty quick. Yeah, it's doing a good job. Downshifts are almost immediate too. The gears are pretty closely spaced. There is a split-second lag, but for automatic, this is doing a really good job of giving me really quick shifts. I think honestly most people aren't going to complain one bit about the speed of these shifts. They're really, really good. And of course, if you want more engagement, go for the manual. Save yourself some money, you know, instead of spending it on the DSG. But if you do sit in a lot of stop and go traffic, this DSG, you know, is one of the best of this type of transmission in this class. And a lot of other vehicles in this class don't even offer an automatic. So the fact that they do, I think, is really cool. Because, I mean, I'm all about giving people choices. I mean, I, of course, would pick the manual because I love rowing my own gears. But if that doesn't just fit your lifestyle or it's not what you want, I like that Volkswagen gives you the choice to have an automatic. And not just have some automatic, but have a very good automatic. And man, in sport mode, throttle response is nicely sharpened up as well. I just can't get over that engine note. Man, that sounds good. It almost has like a Subaru type of a Boxer rumble tone to it. Really sweet. Using the brakes here. The brakes do feel a little mushy. That's one thing I can say. And as I applied full throttle and my wheel was turned, it does a really good job. It has the limited slip differential up front here that really does a good job of putting the power down. I didn't really get much wheel spin even with the wheels turned. Whenever you're in a straight line going full throttle, you can feel them a little bit trying to struggle for grip. We have 225 wide Pirelli all seasons on this one. I think you can also get summer tires as an option if you'd like. But these all seasons are going to be lacking a little bit of grip, but they're still, you know, not bad. I think, you know, it also helps that these vehicles are so light. You know, the GTIs only weigh just over 3,000 pounds at 3,062 pounds. And so that really helps to, you know, you don't need to rely on your tires for grip. The car just has mechanical grip built into it because it's just so light and so low and so compact. This thing can handle so good. There is a little bit of lean there. I don't know if that's built in just to kind of give you a little more drama, or if that's just, you know, it could use some sway bars. I'm not sure. But it still is very flat and pointed. And just, these cars are so much fun to drive, but I don't know. There's something about the GTI. They handle a little bit more precisely, I think, than a lot of the other competition. One thing that really helps is the steering, I think, especially in sport mode here, but in all modes, the steering feels really good. It has a really nice resistance to it. It's a little heavy in sport mode. If we go back to normal mode here, as we're going around another corner, it does lighten up the steering a little bit. So I actually prefer the steering weight in the normal mode, because then it has a good heft to it still, but it's not so much that you need to really put a ton of muscle into, you know, chucking it into a corner, and feels pretty good. It's pretty sharp steering. I just love the way this thing zips around corners like it's a go-kart. It's so fun. The compact size of it really helps too. You can easily place it in your lanes, you know, and and you have great visibility, so that helps as well. I do wish that whenever you were in fully automatic mode here, I wish that the automatic was a little more quick to downshift. I wish it was a little bit snappier. And also, whenever you try and do manual shifting in normal mode, it seems like it's not consistent with the speed of its shifts. And whenever I'm in actual sport mode here, then it seems to be a little more responsive with the shifting here. But even still, there's sometimes where I'm pulling the paddle now, and it's not giving me as quick of a response as it was a few minutes ago. So I'm not sure if it's getting warmer now, and so it's slowing down, or what it is, but sometimes it's pretty quick. And now it's pretty quick, but there's other times where I catch it off guard on a manual shift, and I'm still waiting around for it. So not perfect, and again, reinforces I would rather have the manual, and I think the manual is still the best one to go with, unless you absolutely need an automatic for some reason. but it still is just a really fun driver's vehicle, regardless of what transmission you get. It still is just so much fun to just fly down a back road. It does it so effortlessly, you know, that even some higher performing vehicles that are larger, you know, it takes so much more work to go quickly around a back road like this. Whereas this one, it just doing it all without even, I don't even have to really think about it. I just point and shoot and it does what I want it to do. One little thing as I've come to a stop here that I'm not crazy about is this new stop start feature that you do have a button so you can turn it off if you don't like it, but I wish that they would just kind of you know, not be bothered with the auto stop start, especially on such a small engine like this. I can't imagine you burn tons of gas from a little 2-liter at a red light, but this thing really gets up and goes really well for, again, 220 horsepower isn't a large amount. That 258 pound-feet of torque you can really feel, and yeah, it does a really good job with what it's got. Again, it's not you know, as punchy as stuff like the Focus ST or something like that, but it still is a very respectable, very fun amount of power. Out on the highway here now, you certainly hear the road noise a lot. Now, these roads aren't the smoothest of pavement, but still, you know, that's one of the things, you know, with the economy car basis of the Golf. You know, the GTI just doesn't have a lot of sound deadening, but, you know, it's not a huge deal. You know, it's something I'm sure you get used to, and you can turn the radio up and kind of drown it out a little bit. But speaking of highway driving here, it does pretty good fuel economy as well. It gets 22 in the city and 33 on the highway, so a very respectable amount. You know, again, thanks to it being such a small vehicle, so aerodynamic, having you know, just a small little engine with a turbo. So really, you know, it should be a very economical choice as well. You know, for those of you that daily drive and put on a lot of miles, it should do pretty well. And I've even seen a lot of these Volkswagens get better fuel economy than advertised sometimes, so it could even be higher than that. But one thing that unfortunately is a little too high is the price tag of this GTI. So this is the Autobahn trim. There aren't any additional options put on this one, and it still has an as-tested price of $37,000. Now, these start at $27,000, so that's where you get your better value GTIs at. You know, I think I would skip the base trim because you still don't get like the LED headlamps and things like that. But the SE trim, you know, comes in right around $30,000. You can still get with the awesome plaid interior, the cloth. That's what I would personally do. So $30,000 for a manual cloth SE trim that has, you know, the better headlamps, the bigger infotainment system and stuff like that. $30,000 all day, totally reasonable. I can get behind that. $37,000 for this Autobahn one. You know, you get the better stereo, you get the auto climate control, a couple other things. I don't know if it's worth that large of an upcharge, you know? I mean, especially whenever you consider a Golf R is like 40, so you can spend an extra, you know, couple of $1,000s and get way more power, all-wheel drive, and also now for 2018, the Golf R is the only one that gets the digital gauge cluster. So for $3,000 more or whatever, I would much rather have all those things, and so, you know, if you're spending Autobahn money, just spend a couple more and get a Golf R and have way more car for the money. But as this one is, you know, I think it's still a very fun vehicle, and if you want all the creature comforts, you know, okay, but I think you can't even upgrade the SE to leather if you really do want leather and things like that. So I would definitely, you know, think that's the better value one. But the Autobahn trim here, still, it's nice. They offer it with all the toys if you do want that. So anyway, huge thanks once again to Volkswagen for providing me with this GTI to review for you guys today. Let me know your thoughts on the 2018 GTI in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.